friends, and welcome to the Treaty United Season 13 recap video. If you do enjoy these, of course, drop a like on them. That would be superb. Lets me know you want me to keep doing them. And seriously, the support on the last one was insanely huge, so keep that up. Obviously, we're streaming live right over on Twitch right now, doing the transfer window with... Oh, good lord. I won't even spoil the surprise. There's lots of stuff going on right now, is all I can say live, but we'll hear more about that in a sec. And of course, if you want to watch the VODs in full, they're over on the second channel, link in the description. As always, we like to start off with the youth prospects, some nice easy stuff. And this year was a weird one because our youth intake was still very bad, 1.5 stars. However, there were a couple of players in it that we were like, you know what? They're potentially workable. So let's jump into that now. The first of whom is, well, his name's actually Connor Sproul, but I just kept calling him Cole Sprouse, so that's now his name. The reason we like this guy, now ignoring the potential a little bit, just ignoring that, attribute-wise, we thought, you know what, there's a player here, 17 tackling to come in with is very nice, because it means that basically he'll never have to work on his tackling, and we can focus on every single other part of his game. Has okay crossing and dribbling, his marking's not bad, his positioning's not bad, and he's got okay physicals and mentals for a 16-year-old. And we thought, you know, even if his overall potential isn't the highest, there's still a quality player here potentially, and even if it's not for us, could be for other sides, good personality as well. I think he'd be an excellent player. Only other real, there was another player, but I've forgotten his name, but Maxime Bayoul as well, a Swiss left-sided player, not bad either, with okay starting attributes. Like, we've done okay this year. There was just no real standouts from our youth intake, and I think that's unlikely to be anytime soon because the board still won't let me touch anything to do with it. Not entirely sure why, but there you go. It's time to talk about signings, and we've spent... Well, actually, this year, the money spent on signings is a little bit weird, and I'm going to have to explain the outs, really, before I explain some of the ins. So it's going to be a bit of a mishmash of both at this point, because it's just occurred to me from looking through the signings that have come in, we actually only made one signing. In terms of... have already joined us. There's two more I want to show you in a minute, and you'll understand why in a set, but there's something else that needs to be explained first. Francisco Silveira came in for 600k from Nacional. The aim is to get him out on loan, obviously. Just a solid sort of central midfielder. Again, he's more of a, we'll get him homegrown, all that jazz, play for some other Irish sides and do a good job. We're trying to farm players at the moment, and it's really important because it's making a massive difference, I think, to the other Irish sides. But now, let's talk about some of the outs first. The first of whom was Chris McLean. He's a 20-year-old Irish central midfielder. I sold him to Man United, and this was a choice. I sold him to Manchester United for £2.1 million. Because one, they offered it. Two, I felt that there was no way that he was ever going to really be able to break into our starting 11 in the meantime, considering some of the quality we had in midfield. And I was worried that he was going to force a move elsewhere anyway. And I felt like if he did ever get released, he would not join another Irish side. So when United came in, I thought, you know what? Screw it. If we can get 2.1 and a 50% of next sale fee clause, which we did, then I'd be happy with that because it's good money for us. And it's more money than we were ever going to be able to get selling him personally because his value would shoot up so much at Manchester United that we'd be able to get a lot of value back later. So that's exactly what happened. As about 2 months later, I sold that clause for, I think, 5.6 million. So in the end, he's probably going to earn us just shy of £8 million from one piece of business from the transfer. And yes, it would be cool to have this guy come through, but it just felt like at the right time for that deal potentially. And there's still going to be solidarity later. I want to see how he does. You never know. They'll probably release him anyway. We can bring him back on a free transfer. But for like nearly £8 million of transfer money, I was happy to do it, you know. Anton Rakov left to go to Krasnodar. His contract was up at the end of the season. My plan was to bring Palanek Mate back from Skamut Rovers for next year to be another centre-back for us. So we didn't really need Rakov anymore, and he was earning way too much money here. So he's gone for £500,000 to Krasnodar, and he's earning even more money there. So hey, I guess that's fine for him. The last of the sort of outs we need to talk about before the big one is Gavin Osborne. Nearly £1 million he went to Crystal Palace. He just wasn't getting game time here, so to sell him back to the Premier League for, you know, nearly £1 million, I was kind of happy to do that. He's one of those players that was good, but just I think there was just so many midfielders at this club that were just that little bit better that it was the right time for him to move on, as he wasn't homegrown or anything like that, and those were kind of stopgap players in the meantime. Okay, so moving on from that, now we need to talk about the biggest issue. And this is something that I've had to try to compose my thoughts about because, well, those of you that saw the stream on Saturday where this happened will know exactly how I feel about it. So, picture the scene. There we are, doing our thing, having a bloody lovely time. It's the summer, we're getting bids on our players, nothing really unusual there. The standard sort of fare. You know, bid comes in, sometimes player doesn't complain, sometimes player does complain, whatever. Bid came in from Barcelona for Zlatko Savric of around about £15 million. I said no, it said he'd be unsettled. I thought, fair enough. That happens, we'll try and talk to him. I then did talk to him, managed to do, no one else was able to talk to him, did the whole influential player situation thing going. He was like, good, I'm happy to stay, perfect. I was like, right, you've only got a year left on your contract, or year and a half left, so we'll get you a new contract now, tie him down for like 5 years, and we'll be good to go on big Zlatko Savric. Except, upon us actually going into the menu to offer him a new contract, we noticed it had gone red, and I was like, suspicious. Because it said, because an offer had already been accepted, and we were like, Which offer? We just turned down all the offers and then convinced him to stay. So what is this offer that had been accepted? Well, it turns out that, you get those big grids of offers sometimes, and I always stall them. So it turns out while that was happening, and I was stalling offers, Porto had put a bid in of £15 million, and the board, in their infinite wisdom, had decided to accept it above my head. The problem being that the interface, when you have a stalled offer, it changes the colour, is the same as the board accepting an offer for you. It goes the same colour. So we just assumed they were all stalled until we went through, saw it in the news article, and because it was in with another bunch of offers, you didn't get that big menu pop up that tells you can protest or anything. It was just there, done, gone. And I was like, well, that's kind of shit. Admittedly, as well, it was 15 million rising to 21. And we're like, cool. So you've just sold one of the best strikers in world football, honestly, and could potentially be that for basically, okay, it's double the money we paid for him, but who cares? Like, what difference does it... If we got 20 million for the player, so what? We can't replace him for 20 million, as you'll see in a minute when you look at how much he's valued at now. And, yeah, so basically, at that point, we decided initially we were going to offer him out, try and get some other clubs to be interested in him, because he didn't want to go to Porto, I should stress. When they bid the first time, he literally said, my client has no interest in joining Porto. But we couldn't take the risk of just letting it play out, because what often happens in these situations is, even if they don't care about the club, when it's the board accepting it, I find that they almost always move, no matter what happens, because they offer them more money. But yeah, if they wouldn't normally do the transfer, but when the board have done it, it does seem like there's this weird mechanic that seems to make them accept the offer more often. Bear in mind at the time, we were also stacked with cash and about to qualify for the Champions League group stages, so the board accepting an offer for one of our players then is also ridiculous, but that's a side note. So we tried to offer him out. The idea was to get another club that he's more interested in to bid, manage it ourselves so that he turns down the Porto one and chooses to join, say, Man United or something, and then because he doesn't want to leave, we could just cancel it at the last minute and bin the whole thing because we didn't have a boat clause. However, then when that happened, the board then accepted all of those offers above our head as well. So, yeah, they were just determined to ruin our lives, sadly. So in the end, he ended up going to Chelsea and not Porto, but for the same price. We changed his name to Juliet, there are reasons. But you'll notice that he's now worth between 93 and 111 million pounds. So thank you, the board. I bet that £15 million is going to really help us out when you've just sold a player that immediately gains that kind of value when he leaves. It's all very well saying we have money in the bank, which we do now have money in the bank, but are we going to sign a striker of this kind of quality? Of course not. Which means that at the end of the day, money in the bank is worthless if it makes your team worse. Because all that matters is winning football matches to us right now. And yeah, it's set us back a long way as far as development goes, which is extremely disappointing. Particularly when you lose a player that didn't even want to leave. That's the dumbest thing about it. That our board have sold a player from us that we didn't want him to go, and he didn't want to go. But yeah, that's just Football Manager this year. Anyway, that's enough of the rants about that. We've lost him. That's all we can really say on the issue. We do have a 20% of profit clause on the next deal. So if Chelsea do sell him for huge money at some point, we'd still get a nice windfall, but who cares at that point? This man was our golden goose, sadly. So then we did a lot of striker searching. And I'll show you the two guys that so far we've signed up as a replacement. They haven't actually joined us yet. They'll join us in January. The first is Jan Vostorek. I was really excited about him. Now, you can see the difference in quality between him and Stavridge. Any player that's the level of Zlatko Stavridge is not going to sign for us. And if they were going to sign for us, they would want £100,000 a week and about 70 million in transfer. That's how it goes. We were incredibly lucky to pick him up when we did, sadly. And it would have been great if we could have held on to him for a few more seasons because he could have been worth £50 million easily. But there you go. So Jan Vostorek, £4 million we've signed him from Slavia Prague. The reason I like this guy is because he kind of is a bit of everything. Firstly, complete forward, which is very, very rare these days, particularly on young players. But just looking at him as an advanced forward as well. Dribbling and finishing and first touch are solid. They're not spectacular, but he's only 18. Has tons of room to grow. It's all good. Composure, again, not amazing, but it can improve with time because he's only 18. He will be homegrown. He's not got the best physicals, but they're also not bad either by any means. He does lack a bit of aerial presence, but he does have 16 heading. Good personality, reasonable on both feet, tries killer balls, which is kind of weird. Decent off the ball as well. Determination is solid. He's a good player. And for £4 million, I was happy to do this deal because he will be a homegrown train at club player. And I think the future could be very bright for Jan Vostorek. But we did a lot of searching and actually found several more strikers, another of which I've brought in as well. Play alongside him, we have Vojislav Novakovic from Red Star Belgrade. Would you believe it? For some reason, we've lost a bit of scouting knowledge on him now, which is odd. Needless to say, his composure is 15. That much we do know because we did see it and now it's got worse again, which is odd. But 17 finishing, 15 composure. Physicals aren't spectacular on him either, but he's got got great off the ball as well. Decisions aren't bad. Determination is decent. The Holy Trinity are okay as well. And again, 18 years old, £3.4 million from Red Star Belgrade. We still have plenty of money to go, and that's what we're going to be spending over on stream right now, really trying to boost this squad up. Trust me, you'll see our transfer budgets in a minute. But he's the next guy we brought in. But this is the kind of players that we have to target, because we have to go and sign young players and hope that they have high potential, and then we can develop them into a good player. It's very rare that we're in a position like we were with Zlatko, where we could actually sign a finished product for relatively good money. That will probably never happen again in this save. Although there is another player out there that is kind of just that, but we can't talk to him just yet. He's called Alejandro Volcan. He's ridiculous. He's probably one of the best strikers in the world. Still plays in in Argentina. My guess is he leaves to go to Man United in this transfer window, but he's been there a while, so you never know. One day maybe he'll start talking to us. So that literally completes the signings and ins and outs at this point. It's been a bit of a weird year for that, because we were kind of happy with our team, but we now have an absurd amount of money in transfer budget. And when I say absurd, I mean £30 million absurd. 30 million and like 300,000 in wage budget is what we've got for this transfer window. So we're going to be doing scouting out the wazoo and finding some players. We found an insane Bulgarian defensive midfielder. There's a lot of players that we're going to be talking about. So yeah, hop over to stream now. End of the day, I've probably signed about 3 of them already. That's how much we're ready to action these, to be honest. So let's turn our attention to happier times, and that's the actual team's performances. And we got off to a relatively good start in the league, as we often do. Did lose to Dundalk in a game in there, though, but then it was just wins. And you can see that, he just got off to the best start possible. Savage was just banging in goals left and right, as you would expect him to during that first part of the year. An 8-0 victory as well in a game in the cup against Shelbourne, who were in the top flight, bear in mind, as well. Then we had a weird spell as games started to catch up with us. Lost a lot of games by 3-2. Like all 3 of them, in fact, by 3-2. Very, very strange to just have all these games be the same scoreline, but there you go. Then got back on the winning wagon again, progressed through. Did lose to Shelbourne, though, in the FAI Cup first round. And the worst thing about that is they then went on to win the cup. You'll see why that's bad in a minute. But we move. Further down we go. More wins. We eventually did win the league very comfortably. Well, not very comfortably, but comfortably enough in the end, due to a little bit of drop-off from Dundalk. You'll see in the end that Drogheda do actually come up this season. But yeah, we ended up winning by 15 points. A lot less than last year, and it was a lot closer for a lot longer. Luckily, it wasn't in a World Cup year or anything, so we had less fixture congestion. Because honestly, had we had fixture congestion because of the World Cup, where we have the 3 games a week, we might have struggled to win the league this year, genuinely. So there you go. Dundalk comes second. They get Champions League, which is the first time we'll have another Irish side with us in the Champions League, albeit it's going to be tough for them. They're going to get smashed. But they'll have 3 goes at getting to the group stages of the Europa League or Europa Conference League. And statistically, there's just more chances for them to win matches and get coefficient points for us. Bows are in Europe as well. Scammert Rovers also joined them in the Europa Conference League, sadly. And you might notice that bottom of the league, Shelbourne, yeah, they're going to be our Europa League team next year. So we've basically got 4 teams in Europe, essentially. But that's just how it goes. We've got 5 teams in Europe next year. It's going to be fun to see how that one pans out, but yeah, not ideal given that one of the teams is Shelbourne, who were dreadful this year and won 5 matches all year. Cork City also fell off a cliff. Thankfully they survived, so that should be fine for them. You also notice that Martin Gregerson, 34 goals in the league for Dundalk in 36 games. That is supremely good. We had no one that even comes close to that, obviously, because Shavrich left midway through the season, and we then had to revert back to Emmett Doran up front, who did do a stellar job at carrying the line for us towards the end of the year and scored some very important goals. But it was at that point that we decided that we definitely needed to look into more strikers. We had to, particularly as we now had the money to do so. I'll very quickly show you the budget. So obviously it's 34 million there, but that's because I moved the wage budget around a little bit. If you put it back to 30, we've still got an insane amount of money available. I mean, that is the situation. We've got new scouting setups. We really are cracking it out at the moment, and there's so many cool things that we found this season that I think are really going to help us in the long run. So yeah, that's exciting. We just have so goddamn much money. We've got like, how much money is in the bank at the moment? £40 million in the bank. And that's only because the board have just spent £8 million on a new stadium, by the way. So that's now happening. It's the Richard Ngombe Park. We'll change the name of it. I'll talk to you about it in a sec, actually. You see it there. Due to move into the basically just shy of 10,000 seater stadium at the end of the season after next. We've got a sponsorship in place for it too, but it has cost us £8.5 million. And honestly, I'd rather we just didn't, to be honest. It's £8 million wasted on a stadium that is not going to help us in the meantime. Like, I don't mind building a stadium when we've got 100 million in the bank and are sitting pretty, but right now, every penny counts for us in building a squad. But there you go. The board's going to do what the board's going to do. Presumably, they sold our players so they could build a stadium for themselves, but there you go. That and a new lake house, obviously. Still can't adjust our youth facilities. They won't let us. That seems to be bugged completely now, which is a shame. Would be quite nice if we could improve them, but no. And training facilities as well. We also can't upgrade those either anymore, I don't think. Which is, again, a bit of a shame because they're not maxed out, and it would be quite nice if we were at least allowed to ask the board to upgrade them, but no, not allowed to do that either. So that's a shame. But there you go. Now, Europe. This is key, because we were in the Europa League group, Europa League knockouts last year again. So let's talk about that. We finally got our revenge on Leicester City. A 2-2 draw away from home with obviously 2 goals from Zlatko Šavrić, standard. But then the home game was just something else. Another hat-trick for Zlatko Šavrić, and then Thijs Vries grabbing us another one. 6-2 over Leicester City in the Europa League. Finally starting to put some of those teams to bed. Then it got even better for us. Roma, 2 more goals from Šavrić, 1 from Florida Man in there too, and then a 3-2 victory away in Roma too. Moses Maeni with a brace, and Mihai Alaku grabbing another one for us too, to push us to the quarterfinals of the Champions League, where things went a little bit wrong for us, sadly. We were very, very good in this game. Juliet with another hat-trick in this one, but Inter, sadly, got themselves, they got 4 goals in this one, and it just wasn't quite to be. We did a bloody good job of hanging on in there. We were actually 2 goals up in this game as well, but you know what these games can be like, sadly. And then in the second leg, disappointing as hell, Tomislav Aleksic gave us the lead, and it was 4-4 going into stoppage time, and then the referee gave a dodgy penalty to Inter. They scored it in the 91st minute and knocked us out of Europe. It was just such a nonsense penalty. But there you go, 5-4 in aggregate out of the quarterfinal stage. I felt we could have gone further, but we really are showing great chops in Europe at the moment, as far as Europa League goes. We're regularly getting quarterfinals or further in Europe, and that's really, really important, because we need a few seasons of just doing well in the Europa League, honestly. Like, 3rd in the group stages of the Champions League, get as many points as possible, but still come 3rd, and then go into the Europa League and see if we can go all the way, because it's so good for coefficient, and it's allowing Ireland the gains that we need right now, and we just need a few seasons of this, because we're really kind of ready to start making that step up, but we're not trying to get knocked out. We just seem to get 3rd every year since that random season. But nevertheless, we move. And it was back into the Champions League again, of course. The second qualifying path this time around. 8-0 victory against Midtjylland. They did have a red card, but what on earth was this game? 8-0 in the Champions League, followed up by a 4-0 victory away for a 12-0 victory against Midtjylland, of all teams. The Danish champions, remember? 12-0 on aggregate. Along for the day, we don't have to play in these rounds, and it's coming soon, hopefully. And then a 4-1 victory over Malmö. We really were doing a Scandinavian tour. A hat-trick for Moses Maeni, 1 for Jordan Millwood, 4-1 on that one, and then followed up with a 3-1 victory away from home with Emmett Doran scoring and a brace for Tomislav Aleksic, sending us through, I think, 7-3, so 7-2 on aggregate in that one, where we then found ourselves up against HJK of Finland in the final round, which is always so satisfying. A brace for Emmett Doran. There was a red card for Stojanovic, and that kind of stymied any success we were going to have beyond that in that game, but we did the job. And then, of course, we went to Finland, Thijs Vries, and Espen Falkenås, the Norwegian, scoring the winner for us on the night in the 93rd minute to make sure we won both games, because that's important for coefficient score, and sent us into the group stages again. Of course it was. And this year's group was a weird one, as we ended up with Milan, of course, the team that beat us in the Europa League final a few seasons ago, Real Madrid, and Fenerbahce, which I looked at that immediately and thought, right, 3rd place. That's basically 3rd place in that group, surely. And things started off well. 3-0 victory over Fenerbahce, a brace for Emmett Doran, Moses Maeni on the board as well. This is after Šavrić had left, so Emmett was back through the middle and doing Emmett things. ED7 forever. But then we got a hell of a kick up the arse when we beat Milan 1-0 through Emmett Doran. It was almost like a repeat of the Europa League final, except the part where we conceded. And we smashed them. I think our XG was nearly 3 in this game, and they barely did anything. And somehow we only won 1-0. I think we also missed a penalty in this game too. So very, very disappointing indeed. But 2 wins out of 2. Sadly, we couldn't keep that up though, as we were hammered 5-0 in the Bernabeu by Real Madrid. Absolutely dreadful performances all round. It wasn't even that we were that... They weren't even that good. We were just very bad. The own goals, there were just decisions being made left, right, and centre all over the shop. Disappointing 5-0. But then we only lost 1-0 to Real Madrid at home and park. So not a bad result from us, honestly. We're getting closer to some of these teams in random games, ignoring the 5-0. But then the game that truly mattered, away at Fenerbahce, Emmett Doran and Jordan Millwood gave us the victory that we needed, sent us to 9 points in the group, and really, really happy with that. We went into that final game, though, against Milan, away, knowing that if we just didn't lose, we would qualify out of a group that had Milan in. Luckily, FM had other ideas, as we lost 6-1. The ironic thing, of course, is we had a higher XG than them in our first match against them and scored once, and they scored 6 times against us. Didn't start scoring until the 45th minute as well, which is kind of mental. We finished the game with 9 men, though, because of injuries, which is a real problem. We've made some subs late on, and then got 2 more injuries late after that, which is why you'll see that they scored so many late goals in this one, which is a bit of a shame, really. But 6-1 was just mental. But that did sadly knock us down to 3rd in the group, and obviously hit the confidence pretty hard too. But in the end, it was almost a perfect scenario for us in many other respects, because it was pretty much, I would say, the maximum amount of points that we could get and still come 3rd, which meant that we would get extra money, extra coefficient points, as well as just prestige and stuff for the club personally, and still get to play in the Europa League after Christmas, which is exactly what we're going to be doing. And even better news is that we got drawn against Dinamo Zagreb. in our first knockout round. Probably the easiest tie we've had for a while in that, which should give us a breeze, hopefully, through to the second round. And there's only really a couple of sides in there that actually scare me. Spurs and Ajax are both in there, and this is the best part. They're playing each other in the first knockout round, so one of them is going to be gone as well. And Lyon and another big side are playing each other too. So this is a year for me that could really, really do well. The one spanner in the works for us, though, is that Manchester United are in the Europa League. They're in the groups, and they won their group, so they won't be in this round. But really, I think we just have to avoid Man United. The longer we can go without playing against Manchester United, the further we'll go in the Europa League. I think they'll be the eventual winners, but you just never know what could happen if we could just avoid them for a few more rounds, keep the coefficient moving, and keep doing our thing. Other Irish sides in Europe. Obviously, this year, they all went in at the same round. Next year, things are getting a bit more complicated, but this is how it went this year. So they all went in here. Sligo Rovers beat IFK Göteborg 4-0 on aggregate and won both legs. Mental. Did not expect that. Cork City got a relatively good victory against the Azzurri side here. They did lose a game, but they still got through, which is awesome. And Bows managed to get past Scoopy of North Macedonia too. So all three sides through to the third qualifying round. Excellent start. Went a bit wrong there, though, as sadly Sligo were drawn against Young Boys, and to be fair to them, did get a draw in one game, which is not bad going, but it was always going to be a tough one given the sides we had in Europe this year. Like, there was a real lack of the quality that we've had in the recent past. No Dundalk or anything like that. So yeah, they went out. Cork City were comfortably dispatched by Zenit, and you'll see here that Bows sadly lost as well to Levski Sofia. So all three of them went out in this round after all progressing. They did do okay for us, but really, I think it's what happens now when we've got those extra places, a little bit more room for wiggle room, more players going out on loan. It's still happening, but it's not happening often enough yet. We're not getting regular group stage qualification. We've had it happen twice so far in this save. Dundalk have got through once, and I think Bows have got through once, but that's it. We need it more regularly, and we need to have seasons with multiple sides in there, because the benefits of having group stages for those teams is insane, because they get 6 chances to win coefficient points. That's a lot of opportunities. But nevertheless, this year, we're currently on a 5.3. So we've made progress over the year that we're losing, which is all I really want to see, although it's going to be tough when it comes to this season. That's going to be really important. So we need to make sure we've got big bonuses before we get to that. But everything we do from here is profit. So if we can go on a nice little run of the Europa League quarterfinals again, probably would end up rounding up to around about 7 again, which is another 2 points to be gained. There's definitely a chance, though, when I swivel this around a little bit, that we could overtake Austria and Russia. Maybe. Potentially. It's on the cards. We're going to overtake Switzerland this year, I would say, almost certainly, because they're just losing such a good season. So we're going to gain up to 14th spot, probably pretty easily, and that does gain you stuff. But if we were to overtake Russia and Austria and go as high as 12th, that would gain us double. We'd actually get to skip 2 rounds of Champions League qualifying from one single seasons of success. And then you start to see the ball rolling. We really are creeping into these spots now, and every year just making progress over the year that we're losing. That year is going to be the toughest one to get rid of, but provided we're starting to replace these seasons with like 7s and 8s, it might not hit us too hard. That's the game plan anyway. As for some of the key players this year, Emmett Doran, 18 goals this year. Now, most of it he spent playing on the left at the start of the year and has now been reverted back to striker. You can see when he did that, and has certainly stepped into the role nicely. Underperformed his XG slightly, though, but you can sort of see why we would kind of want to find a new player. Not because he's not good, he is, but he's not going to get any better. And he's 27 now. We need someone to come in and that can do that job for us. And he's been fantastic over the years, and he will continue to be. But we need to have some new blood that can come in and actually give him a bit of competition. Millie's had a solid year, 13 goals and 11 assists in 26 starts. Good stuff. Alaku as well. 9 goals and 17 assists for Mihai Alaku this year. He's a really strong performance. We've also had a value bump on our players, you might notice too, which is great news. Not that it mattered, because Zlatko was the only guy that didn't get a value bump, which is kind of dumb. But there you go. What a player he is. Frozen Thighs as well. 9 goals this year for him. 13 assists. Another sensational player that is only getting better and better now. Look at 20 million in value. The Donut as well. He's had a great year. 15 goals from central midfield. He is really starting to get the role that we want him to use, because he's just fantastic. 15 goals this year. Only 3 penalties in there too. So he's really been fantastic. Moses Mayani, just doing Moses Mayani things. Only started 30 games. 19 goals, 15 assists. He's a god. Stojanovic, great. 14 assists this year from Sinisa Stojanovic. He's had a great year. Barry Cunningham has actually played 28 times this year because of rotation necessities. Milosevic is still coming along nicely. 4 goals this season. Solid centre-back. Nothing super special, but still, for the price we paid, he's done great. Tortosa as well alongside him. He's wanted by bloody everyone for obvious reasons. What a player he is. Free transfer worth £8 million at the moment. We've got a lot of quality in this side now. Barbara Bruggen has had a really bad season. Like, really bad. He's part of the reason why we did so poorly in the league at one point, because at one point he was underperforming his XG against by like 10 goals. It was strange. He was just letting everything in, and we may have to look for a new keeper during this window. Maybe cash in on Bart for like 10 million if we can. There's also Florida Man. Another good solid season for him. He's worth a load of cash too. 2 goals, 3 assists this year. There's also Tomislav Aleksic. 15 goals and 8 assists this year. Really good from him. Surprisingly good, actually. And Espen Falkenhorst. has really stepped into the fold. Couldn't find a loan, started playing him a lot more in league games for rotation. 12 goals and 11 assists from the right side this year. And a bit on the left, bit through the middle. He's done a bit of everything. He is the future of this team. He's great. There's also Fabrizio Petroni. You might notice his name has changed. Yes, he's Irish now and has just been called up to the national team. I'm hoping to God that he doesn't get a cap, because his wage will practically double if he does. I had no idea that he was ever going to become Irish, honestly, but he is. So he's now Fabrizio Petroni. Alan as well, with 8 goals and 9 assists this year. It's good value we're getting out of Alan, considering the price we paid and how much he's on in wages. He's just good value. Cenk Bayrak's had a slightly worse season this year. Less game time has been found for Cenk, so 9 goals and 6 assists, but he's still here. I just hope we can find a loan move for him one day. Stefan Karpanu, another 30 appearances for him this season. Still a phenomenal player. Look at that, worth £16.5 million now. The value in these guys is absurd. Our squad is actually very, very highly valued now. 5 assists this year. Chivera has had a few games for us. Not too bad. Even he's got some value to him. There's Fernie Lozano too, who I really do think has got good quality and is going to get more and more game time now because he can get into the squads. Tom Howcroft, less games for Tom Howcroft this season, admittedly. Just the 2 goals and 3 assists. There's just been so many midfielders that we've had to choose from that he's found himself down the pecking order, but he's useful to keep around, and I have extended his contract because he's a bit of a club hero and he's homegrown for the Champions League, and it's always useful to have those players. Just occurred to me, I forgot to show you the loan farm. So the loan farm's come along quite nicely now. You'll notice that the names of a lot of these players are not youth academy prospects. They're players we've brought in specifically for the purpose, and that's the idea. Palanek Mate, though, this season, he's been sensational again. He was up there for like player of the year in the top flight for Skamrock Rovers. I'm going to bring him back next year because with us losing some defenders, I think we definitely needed to bring someone back like Palanek Mate and bring him into our first team. Most of the time I wouldn't do that, but he's too good to not have in our team. And yeah. But nevertheless, you know, Shablo, he'll stay out there if I can. 9 goals, 13 assists again. Brilliant. Kuzmarovic has been sensational for Bose. I'm so glad that we managed to get him out there. If they want him back, they can have him. 19 goals for him this season. Dominic Lynch is a youngster. Rastislav Sluka as well. Another 10 assists. Great news. Santa Maria for St. Pat's. Good season for him. Di Silvestre only had half a season at Bray, admittedly, but it was enough to see them promoted. So, you know, that's something. Bastien Gauthier didn't have the best season, actually, with Bose this time around, but still good. Then it sort of tails off a little bit. Kennedy was at Sligo Rovers after a struggling season. Alice Irvine is improving really well, though he is. Kevin Henderson got a loan. Silva got a loan. Lots and lots of loans. And even Roy Galvin got a loan because, well, he had to. Otherwise, he was going to leave. And we can't lose Roy Galvin in a situation like this. So hopefully the loan farm will continue to increase next season, as we're going to try and hopefully be signing right now as many farm players as physically possible to build this loan farm out, because that's really going to be so damn important to get those players coming through, and we've got money to do so. We can sign as many sort of £300,000-400,000 signings. We could probably sign like 10 of those in this window, and we found so many that it's honestly not going to be much of a stretch to suggest that we might actually do it. I know, imagine the scenes. But the plan for this year, of course, is go as far in Europe as we physically can, win the Liga de Canter, and just try to rebuild this team, because we are definitely worse this year without Shavric. It's just inevitable. But instead of trying to replace him, we're going to focus on the future and build our own replacements, because you see now the value of the guys that we brought in young and early. Look at all those players that I was showing you just then that were either free transfers or got very cheap from Eastern European nations at very young ages. They're now worth into the £15 million value, and some of the free guys are worth nearly £10 million. And I think that's where we really have to be focusing on, rather than dumping £15 million into a ridiculous signing. Unless there is someone out there who is absolutely absurd, we won't be doing that. It's very unlikely, because it's just not sound transfer strategy for the future. And the last thing we want to do is spend a load of money and give the board another reason to sell some of our other best players again. We can't do that. It's just not fair. Anyway, so if you have enjoyed this, and I hope you have, drop a like. That'll be gorgeous. Join me over on stream right now, where we're having a great time doing this. I'm probably not got my head in my hands. No, vibes will be good. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one for season 14, hopefully with happier things to report. I'll see you soon. Hold your gun, capybara. Bye-bye.